All right, good morning. It is October 21st, 2025. Today we're going to cover a sermon called Jesus Calling by, I believe his name is Phil Johnson. Yep, Phil Johnson. It's from Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. And it's about Jesus calling. Jesus calling people to go make disciples of all nations, right? So when we talk about that, the term disciple back in the day, from what he discusses, when there was a disciple, there was always a master, right? So if somebody were to be the disciple, there would be a master they chose, and they chose the master, and the master chose them, right? And they would mimic the behaviors of the master. So they'd learn their habits, they'd learn their mannerisms, they'd act like them, they'd follow them around and do everything they could to be like them, right? So he talks about in this sermon how when we make disciples, we're not making disciples of us, right? We need to be making disciples of Jesus. And Jesus is obviously the true master. He is our Savior. He is, if there's anyone that we should be mimicking, anyone that are the people that we're bringing to Him should be mimicking, it should be Him. We're people. We're human. We have our inadequacies. We have our failures. I don't want people, I hope my kids grow up and they have some of the things that I do, and I also hope that they do not mimic some of my behaviors, because I'm still growing, and I hope that I could say something different in the future, right? But even there, I'm still not going to be anything compared to what Jesus is, no matter how much I will be trying to imitate Him. So imitate Jesus, be disciples of Jesus. The second point was, so we're supposed to make disciples, right? So those disciples of Jesus, though, when people ask, he kind of references when people ask him, because he's like a pastor, right? If he can disciple them, oftentimes people that ask you to disciple them want you to be responsible for their not their salvation, but their righteous behavior, them doing well, right? It's a way of offloading responsibility for themselves to follow Jesus and learn about Him to somebody else. Next was, if you weren't a disciple, directly a disciple of Jesus, you weren't saved, right? You were actually an unbeliever, and he even talks about how many of the people would come to his sermons or his speaking, and they'd follow him for a day, and then they'd follow him for another day, and by then many would have dropped off, right? And he would say, I think he even called out the disciples, are you going to leave too, right? And he said, he's pretty much saying that the people that left, the people that come to him and then fall off because it's difficult or whatever, they are the equivalent of Judas, essentially. You're an unbeliever, you might as well have no connection to God. And then and then there's a couple more things he talks about. One is that every time Jesus gives a call to discipleship, which back then anyone who was a believer was called a disciple. So you weren't, at least at the beginning, right? So when you were a follower of Jesus, you were a disciple of Jesus. But every time he made a call for disciples, he made it very clear that it was not easy. It was not meant to be easy. It was not meant to be simple. It's meant to be difficult, right? The world is not here, does not love Jesus, right? A lot of people in the world love Jesus, but the world, our flesh, does not like to do the things that Jesus requires of us to do to be disciples. And then he had 3 little quick points at the end, just kind of referencing how this verse talks. It says, come, so it's a free offer for God, from Jesus, to come to him, right? We're making this turn. And then next was learn. So he talks about taking his yoke. Okay, so this is actually interesting. I really enjoyed this part. He talks about taking on the yoke. He says, for my yoke is easy, right? My burden is light. And there's some discussion as to whether or not the yoke is just the burden on us, right? Like you're yoked like an oxen or whatever, right? Or if it's more like a shared burden between us and Jesus, right? Because you could put together 2 oxen on one yoke, right? So, or like cattle, whatever you like to say. So it's a burden in the sense of it's difficult because we can't be like the world. We have to be disciples of Jesus, but at the same time, it's through his grace and mercy and everything that we're able to even do this, right? It's difficult, but it's only possible because of what Jesus has done and because of the grace of God, right? And then the last thing is to find rest. And when we're disciples of Jesus and when we love him and follow him, we find rest, right? Even through the difficult times. All right, so today I'm hitting legs. It's a fun day. I've had some ankle issues going on, so I'm taking it easy on anything too crazy. But yesterday I talked about kind of tips to make things easy to get into the gym, right? Easier. A lot of it's going to be, it's not easy to put yourself in a difficult situation. One thing that I probably should have mentioned is don't make too many changes at once. Find one thing you're going to start first. I'm going to tell you right now, food is 90% of the battle. If you can get your eating under control, you'll see a lot of improvements in your health. Sleep is also very important. I know it sucks to go to bed early. I got 2 kids, and sometimes Rachel and I want to have some time together, just hanging out. But, that would put us into the later times of night, and that would then make getting up in the morning much more difficult. Usually I'm asleep early 9 o'clock, like we're in bed late 8s, early 9 o'clock, and getting rest, right? And that gets me up at 4, it gives me like 7-ish hours of sleep, 7.5 hours, whatever, so that's plenty for me. I don't get too tired, but don't make too many changes at once. Pick something that's really important. Pick something that you can control, and make those changes. Because if you try to do everything, and I've done this before, I'm going to start working out, and I'm going to start eating healthy, and I'm going to be in like a huge calorie deficit where I'm going to be losing 2 pounds a week, and everything's going to be great, I'm going to magically solve all my problems in a few months. And inevitably after, if I'm really strong, a few weeks, a month, you just fall apart, right? You start missing workouts. You start maybe having a little extra food, maybe sneak some food, sneak some snacks, and you, all of a sudden you're just giving up, right? It's all over. You know, you were like, why am I even continuing, right? So understand that this is going to take time. Anything you do is going to take time, right? I started this kind of whole weight loss thing at 370 pounds this time, right? That was in 2021. 370 pounds. 209-ish, 208, 209 as of today. And that's 3 years later. And that's with me. I had some rough times, right? Took a different role at work a year and a half ago, and that messed me up for quite a while. You know, our business was not doing great, and all these things happened, and you know, food's always my go-to thing, right? People joke, and this is a sad joke, but it's people are like, you either smoke a pack a day or you drink a pack a day, a 6-pack a day, right? And beer, right? I don't drink, so and I don't smoke, but I'm like, for me, I am a stress eater, so for me, when I have a rough day, it's a 6-pack of donuts a day, right? Like it's a go to lunch, right? Run to Quick Trip that's down the road from my place. Quick Trip, love Quick Trip, by the way. Get myself a pack of Dunkers and some of their $1.50 or $1.70 rib sandwiches when they have on the right day, and down all that. I can down that in a very quick period of time. It's not good. It's not healthy. It's actually really bad. You know, it's sinful, right? It's gluttonous, and then it's also just doesn't fix anything, right? So, be responsible in making changes, a little bit at a time, steps in the right direction, right? So, anyways, I really like this sermon. I'm gonna make sure I put the link in there. I enjoy this one. I'm really excited for the next one. It's from John Piper tomorrow. Yeah, I've been praying for. I'm really struggling with patience, and that's something I'm trying to work on. And it's with my kids. And yeah, just mostly with my kids and people at work too. You know, maybe a little bit of that. So I'm really trying to find that through prayer and, you know, something where if you have something you need, don't be afraid to ask God for it, right? I can't do it on my own. Anything I get, any improvements I make, they're going to be from God. So I'm going to start, I think I might look for some specific studies on things like patience and fruits of the Spirit and things like that, just to help with things that I know I'm weak on, right? So, all right. Well, you have a good day. I'm going to go hit likes.